نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم أما بعد بسم الله. Today inshallah we will continue from verse number 33 of Surah Fussilat. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله وعمل صالحا وقال إنني من المسلمين. And who is better in his speech than one who invites to Allah and does righteousness and says, indeed, I am of the Muslims. This verse tells us that the best discourse of a person is to call others towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And notice this is the person who actually acts righteously himself also. So this calling could be through spoken words, it could be in writing, or via any other means. For example, it could include adhan, which calls people towards salah. We have this narration narrated by Muawiyah radhiyallahu anhu in Muslim. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Al-mu'adhdhinuna atwalu an-nasi a'naqan yawm al-qiyamati." The mu'adhdhinin will have the longest necks on the day of resurrection. So, calling people through adhan is also included in the acts that could be considered the best way to discourse. وَلَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ ادْفَعْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. And not equal are the good deed and the bad. Repel evil by that deed which is better. And thereupon, the one whom between you and him is enmity will become as though he was a devoted friend. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives such a golden rule in this verse on how to act in the face of adversity and win the hearts of people. When someone wrongs you in any matter, you should treat that person in a better way. And in turn, your good deed will lead to reconciliation of that matter, almost like how a close friend would have resolved the situation. وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا ذُو حَظٍّ عَظِيمٍ. But none is granted it except those who are patient, and none is granted it except one having a great portion of good. So this verse is highlighting the quality of forbearance and reacting to an evil deed with a better response. That such a quality is granted only to those who are patient. And it is actually a great fortune in this world and in the hereafter. وَإِمَّا يَنزَغَنَّكَ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ نَزْغٌ فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. And if there comes to you from shaitan an evil suggestion, then seek refuge in Allah. Indeed, He is all-hearing, all-knowing. So the word يَنزَغَنَّكَ means يُلْقِيَنَّ فِي نَفْسِكَ وَسْوَسَةً وَيَصْرِفَنَّكَ عَنِ الْخَيْرِ. He injects in you a whisper or distracts you from good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is guiding us to seek protection from the whispers of shaitan. And there is a fairly easy solution to say A'udhu Billah, meaning I seek refuge or protection in Allah. We get a similar dua in a narration to seek protection from shaitan, narrated by Ibn Masud and Ibn Majah. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min ash-shaytan ar-rajim wa hamzihi wa nafthihi wa nafthihi. O Allah, I seek refuge in you from the accursed shaitan, from his madness, his pride, and his poetry. And inshallah, if you read this small dua before starting your prayer, it will help you focus in your prayer. So the dua is, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min ash-shaytan ar-rajim wa hamzihi wa nafthihi wa nafthihi. Let's review these verses from verse number 33 to 36. Distinction is given to the act of preaching and calling towards Islam, that it is one of the best discourses to have with anyone. The ultimate declaration is made in these verses that a good deed can never equal a bad deed. And guidance is provided to seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the whispers of shaitan. ومن آياته الليل والنهار والشمس والقمر لا تسجدوا للشمس ولا للقمر واسجدوا لله الذي خلقهن إن كنتم إياه تعبدون. And of his signs are the night and day, and the sun and moon. Do not prostrate to the sun or to the moon, but prostrate to Allah, who created them, if it should be Him that you worship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens the verse reminding us of His signs in night and day, and the sun and the moon. This arrangement of night and day is indeed a reflection of the amazing power and the infinite wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It regulates our cycle of rest and work. It facilitates growth of plants through processes like photosynthesis and transpiration. It gives nocturnal and diurnal animals their habitat. So there are animals who live in darkness and others that live in bright light. And it enables circulation of air through atmosphere. And there are many, many other beneficial effects of circadian rhythms for living beings. So such is the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in creating the day and night. And then next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions sun and moon as two heavenly bodies that influence our daily life. The warmth and light of sun and similarly the beauty and shine of moon are obvious to us. But we are also aware how they are part of a greater sophisticated galactic system where everything is steady on its orbits and consistent in performing its function and purpose. All the stages of the moon or the sun through the entire year give us monthly and yearly calendars that influence our acts of worship, transactions. It gives us seasons that impact holidays and other events. But with their magnificent size and function, the sun and the moon have been mistaken in the past as gods, as autonomic beings with supreme powers. They have been prostrated to and worshipped. So, لا تسجدوا للشمس ولا للقمر واسجدوا لله. This verse is clearly stating that prostration is only acceptable for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, since He's the only creator and everything else is in need of Him. So even though sun and moon are heavenly bodies that confer lots of benefits, they are in fact under the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you look at previous nations, we find that prostration to kings or authorities was acceptable, both culturally and religiously in the past. Even in Islam, in some of the previous Sharias, it was allowed to prostrate in front of others, not as worship, but as respect and salutation. As we learn in Surah Yusuf, when the parents of Yusuf alayhi salam prostrated before him for salutation. In verse number 100, وَرَفَعَ أَبَوَيْهِ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ وَخَرُّوا لَهُ سُجَّدًا. And he raised his parents upon the throne, and they bowed to him in prostration. We also see an incident in the time of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam when a Sahabi prostrated before him. Narrated by Abdullah bin Abi Awfa in Ibn Majah, he said that Mu'adh bin Jabal anhu came from Sham and he prostrated to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam asked, Ma hada ya Mu'adh? What is this, O Mu'adh? قال أتيت الشام فوافقتهم يسجدون لأساقفتهم وبطارقتهم فوددت في نفسي أن نفعل ذلك بك. I went to Sham and I saw them prostrating to their bishops and patricians, and I wanted to do that for you. What did Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam say? فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فلا تفعلوا فإني لو كنت آمرا أحدا أن يسجد لغير الله لأمرت المرأة أن تسجد لزوجها. Do not do that. If I were to command anyone to prostrate to anyone other than Allah, I would have commanded women to prostrate to their husbands. So clearly we see that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam prohibited prostration for any other purpose, worship, respect, salutation, since it is only suitable for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَإِنِ اسْتَكْبَرُوا فَالَّذِينَ عِنْدَ رَبِّكَ يُسَبِّحُونَ لَهُ بِاللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ وَهُمْ لَا يَسْأَمُونَ. But if they are arrogant, then those who are near your Lord exalt him by night and by day, and they do not become weary. لا يسأمون meaning لا يفترون ولا يملون. They do not falter and do not get bored. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing here that he is self-sufficient. He does not need bowing, prostration, or worship by anyone. If people out of their arrogance continue to associate others with him or not worship him at all, he has no need for them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already has angels who worship him all the time, day and night, and never get tired. As we know from narration narrated by Malik bin Sa'sa in Bukhari, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, فَرُفِيَ لِيَ الْبَيْتُ الْمَعْمُورُ فَسَأَلْتُ جِبْرِيلَ فَقَالَ هَذَا الْبَيْتُ الْمَعْمُورُ يُصَلِّي فِيهِ كُلَّ يَوْمٍ 70,000 مَلَكٍ إِذَا خَرَجُوا لَمْ يَعُودُوا إِلَيْهِ آخِرَ مَا عَلَيْهِمْ. Then I was shown the Baytul Ma'mur. I asked Jibreel alayhi salam about it, and he said, this is Baytul Ma'mur, where 70,000 angels perform prayers daily, and when they leave, they never return to it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already has creation that worships him day in and day out, uncountable, innumerable. So he does not need worship from humans or jinns. So if anyone fails to recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as their Lord, and in arrogance, pride, and negligence does not worship him, he does not need it. Keep in mind, this verse is also considered a verse that requires a sajdatul tilawa. And some scholars consider verse number 37, the previous verse, to be the one that requires sajdatul tilawa, and others considered verse number 38. So scholars say it's better to do it after verse number 38, and it will fulfill the obligation of sajda in case it was supposed to be at the verse 37. ومن آياته أنك ترى الأرض خاشعة فإذا أنزلنا عليها الماء اهتزت وربت إن الذي أحياها لمحيي الموتى إنه على كل شيء قدير. And of his signs is that you see the earth stilled, but when we send down upon it rain, it quivers and grows. Indeed, he who has given it life is the giver of life to the dead. Indeed, he is over all things competent. Let's review verses 37 to 39. Day and night, sun and moon are signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wisdom and power, and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is worthy of worship. Prostration to any other being is not permissible. And finally, angels glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tirelessly at all times, be it day or night, so he is not in need of anyone else to worship him. إن الذين يلحدون في آياتنا لا يخفون علينا أفمن يلقى في النار خير أم من يأتي آمنا يوم القيامة اعملوا ما شئتم إنه بما تعملون بصير. Indeed, those who inject deviation into our verses are not concealed from us. So is he who is cast into the fire better, or he who comes secure on the day of resurrection? Do whatever you will. Indeed, he is seeing of what you do. Yulhiduna means yamiluna anil haqqi. So ilhad literally means to deviate and to incline towards one side. Ibn Abbas anhu has defined ilhad as al-ilhadu huwa wad'u al-kalami ala ghayri mawdi'ihi, to put words in improper place. In fact, ilhad is a kind of hypocrisy where someone claims to have faith in Quran and its verses but fabricates meanings which are against the explicit commands of Quran, Sunnah, and the principle of Islam. Then later on, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَفَمَنْ يُلْقَى فِي النَّارِ خَيْرٌ أَمْ مَنْ يَأْتِي آمِنًا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here contrasts two outcomes on the Day of Judgment. Those who are thrown in hellfire versus those who come with the protection and amnesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These two states are definitely not equal. And next comes a very strong warning and threat. اعملوا ما شئتم إنه بما تعملون بصير. Do what you wish. He sees what you do, meaning now that you have been clearly told about those who have a favorable end, that they will enter Jannah, and those who have a miserable end, that they will be thrown into fire. If you don't take heed from this warning, then go and follow your whims and desires. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is observing all your actions, and He will hold you accountable to your mischiefs and sins. إن الذين كفروا بالذكر لما جاءهم وإنه لكتاب عزيز. Indeed, those who disbelieve in the message after it has come to them, and indeed it is a mighty book. لا يأتيه الباطل من بين يديه ولا من خلفه تنزيل من حكيم حميد. Falsehood cannot approach it from before it or from behind it. It is a revelation from a Lord who is wise and praiseworthy. Batil in this verse has been interpreted in a couple of ways. One explanation is that Batil refers to shaitan, whether they are from jinn or from humans, that they will not be able to alter anything in the Quran. Another interpretation is that Batil means that any disbeliever will not have the ability to distort the integrity and meaning of Quran. So one way to change Quran would be to add or remove verses, as is mentioned here, min bayni yadayhi, from the front, that is in a very obvious way. So that's one way to alter Quran. And the second way to alter Quran would be through false interpretation, which is referred to as min khalfi, from the back, that is in a coveted way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declares that neither type of alteration in Quran would be possible. As we know from Surah Hajr, ayat number 9, Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafizun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, indeed, it is we who sent down the Quran, and indeed, we will be its guardian. Let's review summary of verses 40 to 42. There's severe warning given to anyone who distorts verses of Quran or deliberately interprets them incorrectly. And Quran cannot be tampered with in its words as well as its meanings. ما يقال لك إلا ما قد قيل للرسل من قبلك إن ربك لذو مغفرة وذو عقاب أليم. Nothing is said to you, O Muhammad, except what was already said to the messengers before you. Indeed, your Lord is a possessor of forgiveness and a possessor of painful penalty. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is consoling Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam that what disbelievers say to him in rejecting his message, similar things have been said in the past to other messengers. So he should not get disheartened, and instead he should be patient like other prophets and messengers were. As it comes in Surah Ahqaf, ayat number 35, فَاصْبِرْ كَمَا صَبَرَ أُولُو الْعَزْمِ مِنَ الرُّسُلِ وَلَا تَسْتَعْجِلْ لَهُمْ. So be patient, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as were those of determination among the messengers, and do not be impatient for them. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says towards the end of the verse, إِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَذُو مَغْفِرَةٍ وَذُو عِقَابٍ أَلِيمٍ, that He can forgive, but He can also punish. Meaning, if you turn towards Him in repentance, you will find Him oft forgiving. But if you persist and remain stubborn in your disbelief, then He is capable of giving out severe and painful punishment. A point of reflection for us in this verse is the lax attitude of people towards their responsibility today. The concept of Allah's mercy has become distorted among masses. When it comes to sinning, there's almost an inner voice that reminds the promise of Allah's forgiveness only to make you more bold in your intention to sin. What a dangerous trap of nafs and shaitan. Our mind does not recall on such occasions the punishment given to previous nations. What is even worse is that when a person blindly commits sins with a vague notion of Allah's ultimate forgiveness for believers, Allahu Akbar, we have taken hellfire very lightly these days, let alone all the difficult moments from death to resurrection. The common attitude becomes, you know what, even if we live for some time in hellfire, ultimately, paradise is for us. As it comes in a narration narrated by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri in Tirmidhi, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, نَارُكُمْ هَذِهِ جُزْءٌ مِّن 70 جُزْءً مِّن نَارِ جَهَنَّمَ لِكُلِّ جُزْءٍ مِّنْهَا حَرُّهَا. this fire of yours is one part from 70 parts of the fires of hell. Each part of it is like the heat of this one, meaning it's extreme. What we experience in this world as heat from fire is nothing compared to what is in the hellfire. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the right understanding and save us from following our desires and not be deceived by false fabrications of our minds and enter us into paradise without experiencing a single moment in hellfire. Ameen. وَلَوْ جَعَلْنَاهُ قُرْآنًا أَعْجَمِيًّا لَقَالُوا لَوْلَا فُصِّلَتْ آيَاتُهُ أَعْجَمِيٌّ وَعَرَبِيٌّ قُلْ هُوَ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا هُدًى وَشِفَاءٌ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ فِي آذَانِهِمْ وَقْرٌ وَهُوَ عَلَيْهِمْ عَمًى أُولَئِكَ يُنَادَوْنَ مِن مَّكَانٍ بَعِيدٍ. And if we made it a non-Arabic Quran, they would have said, why are its verses not explained in detail in our language? Is it a foreign recitation and an Arab messenger? Say it is for those who believe a guidance and cure, and those who do not believe, in their eyes is deafness, in their ears is deafness, and is upon them blindness. Those are being called from a distant place. So this verse gives a clear reasoning why Quran was revealed in Arabic language, because that was the language of people around Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Any other language would have been illogical. Then in the middle of the verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes two qualities of Quran. هُوَ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا هُدًى وَشِفَاءٌ. It is guidance and cure for believers. Indeed, Quran has guidance for all the spheres of life. With regard to the cure, it is for spiritual diseases like kufr, shirk, arrogance, greed, doubt, and also for physical illnesses. So not only there are many explicit du'as scattered throughout Quran to call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for protection and health, but there is also inherent power in Allah's words that heals the physical diseases. Towards the end of the verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أُولَٰئِكَ يُنَادَوْنَ مِن مَّكَانٍ بَعِيدٍ. Imam Qurtubi explains the linguistic context of this verse in his Tafseer. When Arabs saw someone who is understanding what is being said, they used to say, أَنْتَ تَسْمَعُ مِنْ قَرِيبٍ. You are listening from a near place. And when someone does not understand what is being said, they used to say, Anta tunada min ba'id. You are being called from a far place. So this verse tells us that people who do not intend to take guidance from Quran, it is as if their ears are deaf and their eyes are blind, and they are so far from the straight path that the instructions to course correct don't even reach them. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا مُوسَى الْكِتَابَ فَاخْتُلِفَ فِيهِ وَلَوْلَا كَلِمَةٌ سَبَقَتْ مِنْ رَبِّكَ لَقُضِيَ بَيْنَهُمْ وَإِنَّهُمْ لَفِي شَكٍّ مِّنْهُ مُرِيبٍ. And we had already given Musa the scripture, but dispute arose therein. And if not for a word that proceeded from your Lord, the matter would have been settled between them. And indeed, they are in grave doubt concerning Quran. مَنْ عَمِلَ صَالِحًا فَلِنَفْسِهِ وَمَنْ أَسَاءَ فَعَلَيْهَا وَمَا رَبُّكَ بِظَلَّامٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ. Whoever does righteousness, it is for his own soul, and whoever does evil does so against it, and your Lord is not ever unjust to his servants. Let's review verses 43 to 46. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is soft forgiving, but he's also capable of enforcing punishment. Quran has guidance and cure for believers, both spiritually and physically. And everyone is accountable for their actions. Stop here, inshallah. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ.